Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mallory Rush, and I am the Executive Director at Empower Missouri. Thank you for joining us for our monthly Empowering You webinar series. I am just going to start out with a couple of basics, a couple of legislative updates, and then I'm going to turn it over to our amazing guest speakers that we have with us today to talk a little bit more about President Biden's stimulus package. So a couple of quick webinar and Zoom basics. If everyone can help us out by keeping themselves muted, you can do that with the microphone icon in the lower left corner of your screen, or with the three little dots in the upper right-hand corner of your square on Zoom. You can mute yourself. If you are joining us by phone today, you can use *6 to mute and unmute. And then throughout, feel free to post any questions or conversation in the chat feature. We love for this to be interactive. After each of our speakers give their presentations today, we will have time for question and answer. So we'll definitely take your questions throughout and make sure that they get addressed before the end of our time together today. And we are recording this webinar. It will be live on our website after the event. So if you learned something and you found it helpful, feel free to share it with others. That's what it's there for. I wanted to start out by just providing a few legislative updates with what Empower has been working on over the last couple of weeks, just to get everyone updated. I literally walked through the front door of my house about 3 minutes ago, driving back from Jeff City. So we were in Jeff during this sort of chaotic week of snowstorms and rescheduling and trying to figure out what was going on. So we are hard at work representing the interest of Missourians. So just a few quick updates from last week. So we had 3 priority bills that had hearings last week. On Tuesday, the Special Committee on Criminal Justice, which is now, I believe, in its 3rd year of existence as a special committee, heard HB 277, which is Representative Hannigan's bill on early parole for some incarcerated individuals who are 65 and older. So, really looking to give some relief to what's actually a pretty small segment. I think our projection is that this would affect somewhere between 50 and 100 individuals who are incarcerated over the age of 65, given that we know that the likelihood of recidivism goes down drastically when folks are over 50. So looking to, lighten the burden of the prison system to free some of these folks that are really likely in no means a danger to their community, and also to give these individuals sort of a second chance late in life. Many of the folks that would be affected by this bill have served more than 30 years in prison. So I'm hopeful that we can set a new standard to make sure that folks can have that second chance. That hearing went really well. We're hopeful that that is going to be voted out of committee this week. On Wednesday, the House Judiciary Committee heard HB 217. This is Representative Burnett's bill that would really shore up protections in the juvenile justice system for when individuals, teenagers, mostly under the age of 18, are arrested, to make sure that they are not questioned without counsel present. Really sort of defining these children as a special class that need to have really solid support when they are being processed through the system, knowing that children are very likely to make false confessions and can very easily be coerced and manipulated by members of law enforcement. So really making sure that children that are being handled by the justice system are getting fair treatment. So that was last Wednesday. And then last Thursday, the Senate Ways and Means Committee heard SB 248, part of which is the Missouri Working Family Tax Credit Act, which would provide some much needed relief for families, especially in this time of a pandemic. It functions very similarly, as you see here, to an EITC. So these are things we'll be monitoring closely. We'll let you know as they progress in the weeks ahead. And then this week, this was a very short week in the legislature. The Senate took the entire week off because of the weather, and the House only had hearings yesterday and today. They tried to sort of cram in as much as possible. One of the things that was heard in the House yesterday was HB 755, which is Empower Missouri and the Missouri HIV Justice Coalition's signature HIV modernization bill. So we have been working for the last 4 years to update our very outdated HIV criminalization laws that are not medically accurate and that are very prejudicial and unjust to individuals who are living with HIV. We had an incredibly positive hearing yesterday in the House. In this committee, the individuals were incredibly receptive. They had a lot of questions. We had 5 individuals, including myself, testify in person, which felt like nothing short of a miracle given the weather that we were up against this week, and dozens more who submitted testimony in support of the bill online. So we're very helpful. I had a nice meeting with the chair of that committee after the hearing yesterday. We're very hopeful that can be passed in executive session next week. And then the companion bill on the House side, Senate Bill 65, was supposed to be heard on Monday, canceled this week because of the weather, but we're very hopeful that's going to go back on the docket for the Senate Health and Pensions Committee next week. So we'll keep you updated on that as well. And with that, I want to get us into our topic for today, which is looking at the much anticipated stimulus bill that is currently in the House of Representatives and hopefully will be passed sooner rather than later. So just a little bit of background information about why this bill is so important at the current moment. And then I will welcome our 2 guests who are going to speak a little bit in much more detail about the housing and nutrition provisions, respectively, of the bills. So why do we need this package? So looking at the jobs that exist in the country today, there are 10 million fewer jobs in our current economy than there were in February 2020. So, that means that there are many Americans who are currently out of work, given businesses that have either temporarily or permanently closed due to pandemic conditions. Unemployment rates are high across the board, but especially high for Black Americans and Latino Americans. As you can see here, Black unemployment is at 9.2%, Latino unemployment at 8.6%, and white unemployment at 5.7%, which again, across the board is high, but we're definitely seeing a higher level of impact on communities of color. In a survey that was conducted last month, 83 million adults reported that they found it somewhat or very difficult to cover their usual expenses over the last 7 days. So that's 35% of all adults, 1/3 of adults across the country reported that they were having difficulty covering their expenses. And that percentage actually rises really significantly for families. So it's actually 42% when you look at the subset of adults with children in their household. In that same survey, 24 million adults said that their household sometimes or didn't have enough to eat. That's 11% of adults across the country. That percentage again rises to 15% in households with children, and 13.2 million adults in rental housing, which is nearly 20% of adult renters across the country, said that they were currently behind on their rent. And that number again goes up. We're just seeing these disproportionate impacts on households with children. So on our families, 26% among adult renters with children. So we are really desperate for the provisions that are in this bill. So what are the things that the proposed package would cover at this time? So this is just a really great infographic. We'll make sure that this is posted along with the recording on our website after the event. So this is a graphic from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, which outlines sort of the 8 biggest areas that are covered in the House economic relief package, although it is certainly not the only 8 things that are in there, but sort of broadly, sort of the 8 biggest categories. So it will extend unemployment benefits to make sure that those who are still unable to get employment during this difficult time with whole industries that have been either completely shut down or crippled, can pay their bills and care for their families without falling into this enormous amount of debt. So unemployment benefits are going to be a huge part of this package. Tax credits. So interesting that we just talked about this tax credit that the legislature in Missouri is trying to pass. So this would expand the child and earned income tax credit at a federal level, which the CBPP really does estimate would create a historic reduction in child poverty, and help to close those gaps that we just talked about between sort of households without children and households with children, to make sure that households with children are getting that additional support that they really need. There is going to be a number of health provisions that are in the relief package that will make comprehensive health coverage more affordable and accessible for millions of people across the country. There will be fiscal aid that is provided to states. So I do think that it's important to mention that Missouri has gotten a lot of aid from the federal government already. And unfortunately, we have not seen much of that money passed on to families and businesses the way that it has been intended. Missouri is sitting on an enormous pot of money right now from relief packages that were passed last year. So I think it's going to be really important to be watching the budgeting process at the state level this year, and making sure that we are holding the government accountable for that when this federal aid does come through to the state of Missouri, that we're making sure that it gets where it needs to go, and is passed on to the people that it needs to be passed on to. There will also be money for schools. There's obviously been a lot of concern about the ability for schools to reopen safely, and for each child's sort of educational need to be met. So we will be keeping an eye on that as well, to make sure that, again, federal funding is making it to our local school districts. And then there is going to be, and this is interesting, sort of a pandemic emergency fund. So really helping some of the lowest income families across the country, particularly those with kids, be able to get some direct aid from the federal government to help to weather this storm. And then the last two components that are here are around housing and nutrition. And in order to talk about that, we have invited 2 amazing guest speakers from 2 of our partner organizations to come here today and talk with us a little bit more about those provisions and what they will mean for Missourians. So I am really pleased to introduce Brooke. And Brooke, I apologize because I am going to butcher your last name here. Schipporeit, is that right?
Very close, Schipporeit. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
you're on mute.
no one should. Can you hear me now? Oh shit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, not sure what happened there. No, it's Schipporeit, but you were very close, and
Schipporeit.
no one should be expected to, know how to know that right off the bat.
I apologize. So Brooke Schipporeit from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. The NLIHE has been an incredible partner of Empower Missouri, and we are so glad that Brooke is here today to talk a little bit more about housing provisions. So Brooke, I'm going to try to let you, oh, look, you can do screen sharing. Fantastic. All
Yeah.
right. So
So
Brooke, go ahead.
everyone's seeing the full PowerPoint, is that correct?
I can see it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having us to provide like the federal affordable housing update piece of things going on here in Washington, D.C. I've been on a couple of these calls now, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brooke Schipporeit. I'm a housing advocacy organizer at the National Low Income Housing Coalition. And let me see if I can just switch my slides here. For those of you who may be new to these calls or not familiar with NLIHC, we're dedicated solely to achieving socially just public policy that ensures people with the lowest incomes have affordable and decent homes. So what I'm going to do today is kind of run through what was just passed back in December, just kind of briefly touch on, the new resources that are coming through the pipelines now, and then talk about what's happening on the Hill as far as the next COVID relief package and what you all can do to chime in here to your members of Congress. So I'm going to go pretty quickly, so just bear with me. I want to make sure I have enough time to answer any questions you all have. And I'm happy to, I have links on each of these pages where you can find more information and analysis, but happy to talk offline as well. So here are the highlights from the approved budget for fiscal year 21 as it relates to housing and homelessness. So that's what was passed back in December, was the budget as well as a COVID relief package lumped into one. So just quickly, the HUD budget was a little over $49 billion, which was much more than President Trump's administration requested, and about 500 million above the fiscal year 2020 enacted levels. The Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration spending bill includes 1.4 billion for Section 521 rental assistance and provides 68 million for multifamily preservation and revitalization, which is an increase of 8 million from last year. And the Section 515 rental housing direct loans received 40 million, which was level funding. You can see, like I said, the breakdown of this on our updated budget chart linked here. And I do have to note that that this increased funding is largely due to the hard work of people like you who weighed in with your members of Congress and some key champions in Congress who really made sure that at least level funding was provided. These funding levels likely provide enough funding to renew all existing contracts provided through housing choice vouchers and project-based rental assistance. And beyond that, like I said, level funding or some moderate increases were made to all programs. One final note, for those of you who are tracking some of the harmful proposed rules introduced by the Trump administration, the final bill does not include many of the other critical provisions approved in the House version to halt these harmful proposals. We sent a transition memo to the incoming Biden administration, before they took office, urging them to immediately roll these back, which I believe at least one has. So we're tracking that closely and are hoping to put out a fact sheet on where those stand soon. The relief bill that was part of this budget package is providing essential and desperately needed protections for tens of millions of renters, and was made possible by, again, by you all, the advocacy that you participated in, all of our partners and allies throughout the country, and some congressional champions to make sure that these essential resources were included. So it included $25 billion for emergency rental assistance, funded through the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which was created by the CARES Act back in March. This money is administered by the Department of Treasury. We had initially pushed it to be through HUD, but because this was already created and some issues with HUD in the previous administration, this is how it is for now. And I know Missouri is actually one of the first few states to get its program up and running for this new tranche of funds available. So kudos to you all. We're doing our best to track all of the state and local programs that exist and tracking, new ones popping up or ones that are reopening or closing. So please feel free to share those updates with me as you hear about them, and I'll pass them on to our research team who is compiling all of this information. So from this 25 billion, at least 90% of the funds must be used to provide financial assistance, including back and forward rent and utilities for up to 18 months. I actually think it's 15 months. I may have written the wrong thing there. But up to 10% can be used for services such as case management. And just before the Trump administration left office, which if you've been on any of our calls recently, you've heard this, an FAQ was released by the Trump administration right before they left office by the Treasury Department that is quite harmful in getting these funds implemented smoothly and into the hands of people who need them most. We have been in regular conversations with the administration, the Biden administration, and people at the Department of Treasury, and we know that they are working hard to change these, to rescind this FAQ, and to release new guidance. It sounds like they're in line with our asks of what is needed, but we don't have a timeline yet other than soon, which we've been saying for about 4 weeks now. So hopefully sooner rather than later, because as I said, these programs are already being rolled out, and people need guidance to make sure that it runs smoothly. So these are all much needed emergency measures, but you all know, everyone on this call knows that it's still not enough. So, and I think I failed to mention the last slide here, that the eviction moratorium was also extended to the end of January from this bill, and then since then the Biden administration extended it through the end of March. So sorry for jumping around there for a second. So Congress is currently moving quickly, like was mentioned before, through a process called budget reconciliation to pass a robust COVID relief package in the coming weeks. It is moving very quickly. So budget reconciliation is a process that allows allows Congress to pass budget-related items with a simple majority in the Senate instead of the usual 60 votes that are needed. So each committee works on creating and passing their own bills that fall in line with the rules set for this reconciliation process. Then the Budget Committee takes all of these, packages them up, and sends them to the House floor for a vote. So we expect the Budget Committee to get all of these bills this week, and then they're going line by line to make sure that everything falls in line with the rules. And we expect a vote in the House, on the House floor, around the end of next week, so probably Friday. And so then once they vote on it, that'll send it over to the Senate. And then once the Senate receives this package, it will skip, they're planning to skip the committee process, so they'll go straight to offering amendments and considering those, having floor debate. We expect that process to take like anywhere from 20 to 40 hours, and then they'll vote. So likely the following week from receiving it is when that process will happen in the Senate. The House Financial Services Committee, which is the committee that we care about in this process, passed its bill last week. So let's just take a quick look at what's included for housing and homelessness. There's $25 billion for rental assistance, so an additional $25 billion from what was provided in December, most of which will go again through the Coronavirus Relief Fund through Treasury. And a lot of it is the same, but there are some key differences as far as there's some more flexibility. There's a little bit less restrictive language around eligibility that was used that we worked with the committee on. And the funds can be used for 18 months instead of 15. And the deadlines from the last bill were extended to the end of 2022. So originally the last 25 billion was set to be used through the end of this year. This bill, if enacted, would extend that for another year. So these funds have a more generous time frame as well, with a deadline of the end of 2025. And $5 billion of this money is allocated for housing choice vouchers, with funds available through September 30th of 2030. So they'll sunset at that point unless Congress renews it through the budget process. So these housing choice vouchers are important because they provide a bridge to some longer term resources. And these are targeted to people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, or maybe who previously, recently left homelessness and are at risk of reentering. So it's really an important measure for housing stability in the long term. There's also a set aside for $100 million for rural rental assistance and $750 million to tribal nations that goes through a different mechanism than Treasury to provide greater flexibility. So this bill also provides $5 billion in homeless assistance and uses a unique design. For those of you who work in the homelessness world, you'll be familiar with Emergency Solutions Grant funding. This, however, uses the home investment formula and has several waivers to allow, the usual services and emergency rental assistance that you see under the ESG program. But this set of funds can also be used to build, acquire, and convert space into non-congregate shelter or permanent housing, like permanent supportive housing or other uses. And will be so these will be distributed again through the home investment formula. And these are also targeted, like with the housing choice vouchers, to people experiencing homelessness or at risk of. So let me just make sure I got through everything here. I think I missed a couple here. So homelessness, there's also $10 billion in homeowner assistance to avoid foreclosure, $100 million in housing counseling through NeighborWorks, and $5 billion for utility assistance, most of which that will go through LIHEAP. Unfortunately, this package will not include improvements or an extension to the federal eviction moratorium because all items in this package must have a budgetary impact. So we're pushing the administration to extend, improve, and enforce the moratorium through executive action, which, like I said, they did on their first day in office. So they do have the power to do so, and we're working closely with them to do that. And using, I'll talk about in the next slide, a way that you can engage in that. So, where do you fit into this fast track package? It feels like the train has already left the station. Like, where do you jump in and talk to your members of Congress in this process? So Congress does, in fact, still need to hear from you. Like I mentioned, there's amendments, there's a process to vote, and then there's going to be some amendments in the Senate. So they all need to hear from you to ensure that the housing and homelessness resources that are provided are passed without any harmful amendments added. So it did successfully pass the House Financial Services Committee without any harmful amendments being adopted. We will send out a call to action to everyone who's subscribed to our emails next week, alerting you to when this is going to be voted on the House floor, and how to engage with your members of Congress in that process. And then once it goes to the Senate, we'll do that again. So we'll continue to keep you all updated through our regular emails and action alerts. So just be sure to sign up for our weekly national calls if you haven't already, and our emails at these top 2 links. We also have an email template and portal that we will continue to tweak as this bill moves. We'll tweak the language. You can use it, you can add to it, personalize it, and send that directly to your members of Congress through that portal that we provide. So please take a look at that as well. That's that 3rd link. And then finally, we have 2 sign-on letters for organizations. So if you're part of an organization and you have the authority to add your organization to either or both of these letters, I would encourage you to do so. So one is to the administration, urging them, like I said, to extend, strengthen, and enforce the eviction moratorium. And it's open until March 15th. Because I think, as many of you know, the federal eviction moratorium as it currently exists is important, but it's not preventing all evictions. Renters have to know about it in order to take a step in order to be protected. So we have been working closely with the administration on the things that need to be fixed. And so, we continue to make those recommendations. This letter includes all of those. So we hope you will join us. There's over 2,000 organizations so far. We really want to get it above 2,500 if possible by this deadline. And then our second letter that we currently have is to Congress for the fiscal year 2022 budget, asking them to fund the housing and community development programs to the highest levels possible. So this is the first year, that Congress is not limited by the Budget Control Act, which provided spending caps. So they're very limited in how much they can spend each year. This is the first year in 10 years where they haven't had those in place. So we're really pushing. I think this could be a big year as far as funding programs to the level that's actually needed. So that's what we're pushing for the budget as well. And I sped through that really quickly, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll just open the chat here. And do feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Such amazing information in such a short time frame. You did so great.
It was like rapid fire. I apologize throwing numbers out that quickly, but
No, that's great. We'll be sure that your slides get shared on the website along with the recording so people can pull them. And I did go ahead and pull the links as you were talking. So if folks are looking for that information, it is in the chat. Does anyone have any questions for Brooke? Okay.
Hey, Brooke. Hey, it's Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Sorry. Let me just hop in at the last second there. I was trying to find my unmute button. It's quite a process.
I know.
I apologize. I'm leaving my video off because I am, next to my son right now as he receives an IV. So I'm going to save all of you from that. I did have a question. This last round of funding was also to be distributed with utility assistance, right? Rental and utility assistance. Do you have any guidance for states around best practices for how those dollars go out? How much of that should be prioritized for rental versus utility, et cetera? Do you just have any suggestions for us as we look at that?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if I should know this, but I don't off of the top of my head, if we include if we touch on the utility piece of it we have a document called Best Practices for Emergency Rental Assistance Programs that we kind of learn from as all of these new programs were popping up from money from the CARES Act. We put that out right after this new $25 billion was released or passed in December. So I'll check on that. I don't know the answer. I will say that there's been a lot of back and forth, and it's kind of been decided by locality to locality, is like whether internet is included in utilities or not. So that's the one thing that really sticks out to me. I know that's not necessarily answering your question, but that is something that is a big barrier that people are facing. So I think it's something to flag for groups as they're rolling out these programs, talking to the administrators and how this is so important, where people with lower incomes have less access to internet or already, and we're all forced to be working from home. People are learning from home. I don't know exactly what it's like in Missouri if you all are tele-learning still or not, but I know there's a lot of places around the country who are, and so that's really important to be included in that assistance piece. But I'll do some checking and get back to you, Sarah.
Thanks so much, Brooke. All right. Well, with that, I think we can transition from housing to nutrition. Thanks so much, Brooke. I know that you had to step away from another meeting to join us, so really appreciate you taking the time to be here and sharing all of this very, very helpful information.
Thanks again for having me.
Of course. Have a good rest of your day. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Lauren Badger from the Food Resource Action Center, right? Did I get that right, Lauren?
Food Research and Action Center. Yeah.
Yes. Who is another one of our amazing national partners who works with our food security coalition on a regular basis, and is going to talk with us a little bit about the nutrition components of the relief package. So with that, I will turn it over to Lauren. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to figure out my sharing of my screen. So just give me 1 second here. Okay.
There you go.
Can you see that okay?
Yeah, looks great.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And it's always such a pleasure to partner with Empower Missouri and all of the incredible advocates in Missouri. So today I will be talking about the nutrition provisions in the stimulus bill. And thanks, Brooke, for the great overview of where we stand right now in the stimulus. That's really helpful for teeing off this section as well. So FRAC is a national anti-hunger organization, and we work to eradicate poverty-related hunger and undernutrition in the U.S. And we work a lot on protecting and strengthening the federal nutrition programs. So I'm going to talk about some of that today. So I just wanted to give just a reminder of what we all know on this webinar about food insecurity, hunger during COVID-19, and why additional relief is so desperately needed. So some of the latest stats on food insecurity in January 2021, and this is according to the Northwestern University's Institute for Policy Research. I linked to their very good data visualization tool on the bottom. An estimated 27.8% of adults living with children experience food insecurity. And I want to note that at times during the pandemic last year, they were found that number was as high as 31%. And of course, we know that COVID-19 has exacerbated inequities that existed long before the pandemic. And Black and Latinx households are facing much higher rates of food insecurity. So in that same stat here for January 2021, a percentage of adults living with children that experience food insecurity, that number was 38%. For Black households and 37.4% of Latinx households as compared to 21% of white households. And I also, so we all know, how COVID-19 has devastated communities and caused many more people to face hunger and many other issues. But, today we're going to talk about some of those solutions, and some of the latest data from USDA showed that things would have been far worse if it weren't for SNAP and the child nutrition programs. All right, so on that, on the importance of the federal nutrition programs, just wanted to pull a couple of those examples of how programs have been responding during COVID-19. So nearly 43 million people participated in SNAP in September 2020, and this is up from nearly 38 million in September 2019. The pandemic EBT program provided nearly $10.7 billion in nutrition benefits from March 2020 to September 2020. I'm going to be talking a bit about PEBT later as it relates to the stimulus package. So I did just want to note what this program is. So PEBT was created in the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was one of the first COVID response acts signed into law last March 2020. And this program provides nutritional resources to low-income families who've lost access to meals due to school and childcare closures. So we know this has been a critical program that has lifted millions of kids out of hunger and has really helped to respond to the pandemic. So here's just in front of you is some data on how important this program is. Of course, with programs like SNAP, PEBT, they're critically important, but there are opportunities to bolster these programs and ensure that they continue to respond as needed. And for EBT, as I'll talk about, the upcoming package offers the opportunity to extend and strengthen this critical program to ensure that it helps kids have the nutrition they need when schools and childcare is closed. So, you know, there's many other federal nutrition programs that are responding and that are so important, from additional, you know, school meals, not school time programs, to the child and adult care food program, to WIC, older adult nutrition programs, some of the commodity programs. We know these programs are critically important and have helped alleviate hunger during this time, but we know that there's much more that still needs to be done to ensure that millions of struggling households get the nutrition that they need. So this $1.9 trillion reconciliation package, which is currently circulating through Congress and would enact President Biden's American Rescue Plan, will supply desperately needed relief to households. And it includes key provisions that will ensure tens of millions of people struggling against hunger get the nutrition that they need. The package that was passed at the end of the year, the COVID-19 relief and appropriations package, did include some immediate and essential programs and down payments, but we've been saying all along that more relief is needed. And so this plan that's currently going through Congress is a great package to address some of these needs. So a slide on SNAP. Of course, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, I put our SNAP strength infographic here to just demonstrate the importance of SNAP. SNAP is our nation's first line of defense against hunger, and we must continue to bolster SNAP benefits throughout the health and economic crisis and beyond to ensure that we keep addressing people's well-being as well as stimulating the economy. So SNAP only lifts households out of hunger and poverty, but it also is an important economic stimulus program. It also, as we've seen by the data, it is able to respond quickly to households in need. So SNAP, the key ask, I just wanted to quick note on that economic stimulus note there. For every dollar in SNAP benefits during an economic downturn, it generates $1.50 to $1.80 in economic activity, and that is infused into local economies. And of course, when you provide benefits to households through it also frees up their other resources to purchase their non-food items. So for SNAP, we continue, we've been pushing all throughout last year, thanks to the incredible advocates for all of your work to push for the initial SNAP boost. So the end of year COVID relief package that was signed into law did boost SNAP benefits by 15%. And this is going to end in June 30th, 2021. So this reconciliation bill that's going through Congress would extend that 15% boost to SNAP benefits through September 30th. So that is critical. And that boost means about $27 more SNAP benefits per person per month. So very critical boost. Some other provisions for SNAP that are important in that package is providing extra administrative funds to keep SNAP benefits flowing to households in need and just help keeping the program responding. It also supplies additional funding for SNAP online purchasing and technology improvements. So WIC, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, this package includes a provision to increase the value of the fruit and vegetable benefits, also the cash value vouchers you may have seen, or CVV, for WIC during a 4-month period. And of course, this is critical to helping with families purchase more fruits and vegetables. And specifically, this would increase the value of those vouchers up to $35 a month for women and children. The bill also provides funding for outreach, innovation, and program modernization efforts, which will help the program improve on access and participation. The Child and Adult Care Food Program, there is a provision for CACFP in this package that will raise the eligibility age so that young adults who have not attained their 25th birthday can be eligible to receive up to 3 healthy meals at emergency homeless shelters. So really critical for those youth serving shelters who are serving CFP. There's that. And I did want to note that this is a temporary, and through the duration of the pandemic. Pandemic EBT program, or PEBT. This package would issue benefits during the summer to school-age children, and also allow for the program to be extended through the end of the COVID-19 health crisis. Sorry, I'm losing my notes. I did want to note something about PEBT. So why it's so critically important to extend during the summer. Sorry, you all. Okay, so this critical program that was created was extended in previous packages, but it's currently set to expire on September 30th, and benefits could not be provided during the summer break, on weekends, or for school holidays. So this provision in this package is extremely critical to ensure that it can reach kids during over the summer. All right, budget. Additional provisions. The Commodity Supplemental Food Program, or CSFP, this package does include increased funding for CSFP. It also includes funding for nutrition assistance to the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and American Samoa. And this is important to note because these U.S. territories do not receive the entitlement program of SNAP. They receive a block grant called the Nutrition Assistance Program. And so this provision is critical to making sure that they have the funding that they need during this pandemic. It also includes additional funding to support nutrition programs for older adults and Native American communities under the Older Americans Act. So that's programs like congregate meals and home delivered meals. So what's needed? We continue to urge Congress to pass this reconciliation package to enact the President's American Rescue Act. And we know that this act is critical to helping millions of struggling households get the nutrition and other critical support that they need. And I did want to note, you may have seen this circulating, but it's recently been announced that National Day of Action is upcoming Monday, February 22nd. FRAC is joining Coalition on Human Needs, Moms Rising, Network, and many others. I know Empower Missouri will also be lifting this up as well, for a day of action to urge Congress to enact the American Rescue Plan. So the hashtag that on Monday will be hashtag American Rescue Plan. There will be a national call-in day. Moms Rising and others are circulating call-in numbers to help advocates easily reach Congress. And there will also be a Twitter storm on that same day from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. And there is also a toolkit with content on the Twitter storm on all of these critical issues in the pandemic from all of the partners. And so we will share that link so that you all have the social media content to elevate this on Monday. So I wanted to mention that as well. And I did want to note that in addition to releasing the American Rescue Plan, President Biden has also released some executive orders related to nutrition programs. So on January 22nd, there was an executive order specifically to address food insecurity. And for this executive order, it was an important start in the right direction on looking at the adequacy of SNAP benefits. So that was in there. There's also an important provision to increase pandemic EBT benefits by 15% to provide a snack. And on the February 22nd executive order, that paved the way to undo the harms of the Trump administration's draconian public charge rule. So I wanted to note that. And the last thing to note is that the 2021 National Anti-Hunger Policy Conference is going virtual this year. This conference is coordinated every year, normally in person, but of course not this year. It's co-sponsored by FRAC, Feeding America, in cooperation with the National CACFP Forum. It'll be March 16th to 18th, 2021. I put the registration link here. We've got a lot of great content, and we're announcing some keynote speakers. So if you're interested, please register and join us. We do have some scholarships to help cover the registration fee, and those are due by tomorrow, and the deadline is also on the registration page. I've listed some resources. Our first resource here is our priorities for the current budget reconciliation bill, and that contains all of these provisions that I just went over, the nutrition part of the bill, as well as our transition recommendations with some of our longer term provisions that we're working on to address hunger. I've linked our COVID-19 page, our action page, and FRAC has a PEBT page with a whole slew of information on pandemic EBT, including the new guidance for the early childhood part of PEBT. So that is all on our website. So if you're looking for resources for EBT, please check that out. And here is my contact information. And I saw the chat. I wasn't sure if there's any questions. I'll just go ahead and end my screen share.
Thanks so much, Lauren. I don't think there were questions. That was just me putting in all your links like I did for Brooke. So for anyone who wanted easy access to the links in Lauren's presentation, they can find them all in the chat, and we will put her slides up with the recording as well if you would like access. Any questions for Lauren about the nutrition provisions? Okay, thanks so much, Lauren. We really appreciate your time and insight. So to close out here, I will just share some upcoming events that we have going on. So we have a number of events and meetings in the next 2 weeks that you might want to save the date for. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., we have our bi-weekly Smart Sentencing Coalition meeting. So be sure to tune into that if you're interested in our criminal justice efforts. Next Friday, the 26th of February, we have 2 coalition meetings. We have our Food Security Coalition at 9 a.m. where we'll be talking a little bit more and giving another update. Likely there will be a lot of action in the next week on this bill, so see where we're at both federally and at the state level on food security issues. And then talking about in our HIV Justice Coalition meeting, we'll be talking a lot about the hearings for HB 755 and SB 65, which I mentioned earlier. So join us if you'd like to talk more about those efforts. In 2 weeks, on Friday, March 5th, we'll have our monthly Friday Forum meeting. The topic for that event is going to be on our series for the spring is All Politics Are Local. And this session is going to specifically be about the budget. So we'll be looking at state budget discussions that are happening right now, as well as looking at the concept of participatory budgeting and talking with some folks from the People's Plan about the budget that they've devised for St. Louis. And then finally, our next Affordable Housing Coalition meeting is Monday, March 8th at 2 p.m. So all of those are listed on our website, empowermissouri.org. You can sign up and get the links for all of those there on our events page. And until next time, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.